Mr. Chair, we are now live.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Ajax Committee of Adjustments meeting for today, Wednesday, the 25th of January, 2023. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustments is being held electronically and live streamed on the internet pursuant to the Committee of Adjustment terms of reference and meeting procedures. All regular practices and procedures of the committee will continue to apply during this electronic meeting. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess while they are resolved. Thank you for your patience. We'll now proceed to the meeting portion. Before moving on to the application portion of the meeting, I'd like to confirm whether there are any disclosure of interest from any members of the committee.
I have none.
Okay, perfect. So seeing none, I'd like to confirm whether we can get an adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. So that would be the meeting from December. Could I get a person to put forth that motion?
I will.
Thanks, Mark. Seconded.
I wasn't here, so I'll pass.
Okay, so then I'll second the motion. And all those in favor, raise your hands. Okay, so I see two. And all those against the motion? And any abstentions? Okay, so it passes. Motion is carried with a vote of 2 zip. The mandate of the committee is what I'm going to quickly cover next. So the committee is bound by the Planning Act to assess each application based upon its ability to meet the 4 tests, that the application is minor in nature, it's desirable for the appropriate development or use of the lands, and finally, it is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The process for tonight's meeting will be conducted in the following manner. The applicant agent will be called upon, and at their option, they may provide a brief description of the minor variance application they have applied for. The committee members may ask questions of the applicant and or the agent, after which anyone with a direct interest in the application will be given an opportunity to speak, either for or against the application. Once a motion is put forward by a committee member, there will be no further discussion or input from the applicant or anyone else having an interest in the application. After a decision is made, notice will be sent out and there will be a 20-day appeal period. Anyone having interest in the application may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the decision of the committee. After 20 days of the decision, it will become final and binding. If a building permit or other approvals are required, they may be filed during the appeal period. However, no building permits will be issued until the appeal period is over and the decision becomes final and binding. A respectful decorum during this evening's proceedings is expected of all present at all times. I'd like to take this opportunity to quickly introduce the committee members for this evening. My name is Wasif Ahmed. I'm the acting chair of the meeting today. With me are my colleagues, fellow committee members, Mark Pawlik and Cecil Ramnot. And from the town staff, we have Eric Simpson, who's a senior planner, secretary, and treasurer. Behind the scenes, we also have Sarah Moore, who's acting manager of legislative services, and a deputy clerk. So let's get started. As you can see the agenda on the screen, for those of you that are looking at the screen from the administrator. So we've got the first application is A6122 for 2970 Seabreeze Road, as submitted by Alan and Donna Kemp. And the application. Sorry, did you guys hear some echo there? No?
We did, but it seems resolved now. Yes.
Okay. All right, but you guys can still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, guys. So the first application, I'll just repeat myself. The first application is application A6122 for the property known as 2970 Seabreeze Road, submitted by Alan and Donna Kemp. And the bylaw that is impending for this property and the application is in terms of maximum driveway width. A driveway adjacent walkways needs to be permitted to extend a maximum of 1.8 meters beyond the listed maximum driveway width on the side of a driveway nearest the principal entrance of the dwelling, and a maximum of 0.6 meters beyond the listed maximum driveway width on the opposite side of the driveway, and a maximum apron cut and curb width of 6.1 meters. So those are the bylaw requirements. The relief that's being requested is to permit a maximum combined driveway and driveway adjacent walkway width of 10.7 meters, to permit a maximum apron and curb cut width of 10.7 meters. And there is a staff report that the staff has on the screen. And before we get into that, I'm just going to look to see whether Alan and Donna Kemp or any of their agents are in attendance this evening.
Yes, Mr. Chair, they're all.
Okay, perfect. So at this point, like to maybe just address the applicants. So Mr. and Mrs. Applicant, if you are actually on the line, if you could take yourself on mute and maybe perhaps just introduce yourself. If you're speaking, we don't currently hear you.
I have prompted them to.
Okay. So just in the interest of not quite sure if there's a technical issue or otherwise, but the staff report in front of us and the audience that's sharing the Zoom screen, what you'll notice is that there is a recommendation that the town staff has put together that the committee actually approve the application as submitted based on, for those two variances, so maximum combined driveway width and adjacent walkway width of 10.7 meters and a maximum apron cut curb of 10.7 meters, subject to the following 6 conditions: that the subject variance apply only to the property as 2970, that the owner applicant replace any existing trees on the property that are being removed as a result, that the owner and applicant obtain the necessary permit from TRCA or the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, that the owner applicant obtain a curb cut application from the town, that the parking of vehicles on the property complies with the provisions of section 5.7 and 5.8 of the Town of Ajax zoning bylaw, and that the owner or applicant maintain the existing drainage of the property. If these conditions are not met, the decision will become null and void. Mr. Kemp, I think I have visual contact with you now. Are you, were you able to get your audio go through now? Unfortunately, at least I can't hear you still, sir, but does anybody else hear Mr. Kemp? No. Can you, I'm hearing some distortion on my end. Are you guys still able to hear me okay?
Through the chair, perhaps Mr. Kemp, could you try using the chat function? At the bottom of the screen, there should be an icon that says chat. The chair has just messaged asking Mr. Kemp, can you see this? So you are able to type a message below that, and the committee will see that message.
So again, just for everybody's benefit, I'm just quickly chatting through Zoom with the applicant just to make sure that he can understand the application, the procedure, and also more importantly, the conditions that we've just read out. And Mr. Kemp, it seems like, has confirmed that he understands the conditions. So we'll take that, I think right now, just based on the audio issues that we're having, we'll take that as word that he does understand, and we'll move forward. So at this point, it doesn't sound like we're going to have the audio issues resolved. So let me move on to just asking the committee if there's any questions for Mr. Kemp, and if there are, you can share them and I can type them for Mr. Kemp in the chat. So Mark or Cecil, go ahead, Cecil.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you. Are we to assume that the TRC, this is the staff, are we to assume that the TRCA application is a next step after potential approval of this application, or are these two things moving together? Thank you.
Through the chair, I'm not sure if the owner has submitted the permit application yet, but if they haven't, they would need to before we issue our curb cut application.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Okay. Thank you for confirming, Cecil. Any questions, Mark, from yourself? None? Okay. I thought the application was pretty straightforward as well, so I don't personally have any. Actually, I did have one small question. I just wasn't sure if I wasn't seeing it, and super minor to town staff. In the pictures that were included in figures 1 and 2, I did not see where the tree was that's being taken out. I know it's one of the conditions to be replaced, but is that something that, if you're able to point that out to me, maybe I just missed it?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the trees, like, if you see the yellow shape there, the tree's like at the top of that yellow portion.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I figured it's probably right around there. Okay. That was, literally the only question I had as well. Is there anybody, so if there's no more further questions from the committee, then I will seek to just, if there's anybody in the public, on the phone, or otherwise that's actually here to speak for or against the application. This is for application A6122.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just have a question, a follow-up to your tree question. So where are they obligated to put the tree, another tree, anywhere on their property?
Yeah, so just before I take your question, I'm just going to, just for the sake of the minutes, ma'am, I'll just get you to introduce yourself to the committee, and if I can just get your first name and last name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it's Kathy Dancy.
Kathy Vance. Nice to meet you, Kathy. And can you just spell your last name out again?
D-A-N-C-E-Y.
Okay, perfect. So your question was, if I can reiterate, was where would the owner or applicant have to replant the tree? So let me maybe volley that over to our town staff. So Eric, would you happen to know that? Is there any direction being given?
Yeah, through the chair, we left it open-ended and flexible so that we could discuss with the owner. There's no specific area, just anywhere on the property where they'd be able to fit a tree.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so seeing none, I'll ask for a motion from my fellow committee members for application A6122. Is there a motion out there? Cecil, please go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve minor variance application A6123 for 2970 Seabreeze Road, subject to all staff conditions, as it is minor in nature, desirable and appropriate for the use and development of the lands, and it's in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the bylaws and official plan. I move to approve.
Okay. Do we have a seconder? Mark? Perfect. And just before we go into the voting, guys, I apologize, completely my miss. Just to town staff, Eric, can you just confirm that notice was served on this file? And was there any responses received? I know there was a member in the audience, but was there anybody else?
Yes, notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, perfect. All right, so then we'll, now that we have the motion and it's seconded, so I'll ask the committee to raise your hand if you, committee members for you to raise your hands if you are in favor of the motion. Okay, so that's 3. All in favor. So the motion has been carried. So Mr. Kemp, the application here this evening has been approved, as you may have heard in my preamble at the top. Although the application is approved here, it is subject to a 20-day appeal period. And it can, after the 20 days have become passed, it will then become final and binding. So thank you for your time. We appreciate it. And we'll then move on to the next application, A60 222. Perfect. And then this is for the municipal address for 65 Chadwick Drive. The application was submitted by Tom Theroux on behalf of Kuganiswaran Markandu. And the relief that's being requested is in regards to encroachment into required yards and zoning standards. First item is the bylaw requirement that the relief is looking for is to permit uncovered steps leading to an above grade entrance within the north interior side yard with a minimum setback of 0.4 meters from the interior side lot line. Whereas the bylaw requirement is uncovered steps leading to or from a principal building or platform are not permitted within a required interior side yard. And the minimum setback from interior side lot line of 0.3 meters on one side and 1.2 meters on the other for any detached dwellings with a minimum aggregate setback between dwellings of 1.2 meters. Is the applicant here this evening or an agent? If you are, you may have to take yourself off mute to announce yourself. And just
Good evening. This is Tom Theroux. I'm the legal representative for the applicant, Mr. Markandu.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Theroux. Just before I move further, I'm just going to quickly confirm with my town staff that the application and a notice was sent for this application and whether any responses were received. So, Eric?
Yes, notice was served and there was no responses received.
Okay, amazing. Sorry about that, Mr. Theroux. I apologize for that. So as you may know that the town staff has put together for the committee, and what you see on your screen, if you're looking at your Zoom screen on the screen share, is a recommendation in the staff report that does allow or actually request an approval rather for the application based on the following conditions. That this variance apply only to the 65 Chadwick Drive property. And as illustrated with the red line versions in figure 2 of the staffing report, that's important, that an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel remains to and from the uncovered steps at all times, and that an unobstructed pedestrian path of travel to and from the rear yard be maintained at all times. I think that one just shows up twice. Apologize that the owner applicant maintained the existing drainage on the property and that the applicant also obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services. Have you received a copy of this report and do you have any commentary or agreement to these conditions?
I have received the confirmation of this letter and the notice, and we actually contend and we accept that. Everything is acceptable, no issue.
Okay, well, great to hear. And are there any questions from the committee for the applicant's representative? So sorry, I've just lost my video. So give me 1 second. If you have your hand up. Oh, Cecil, there we go. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, I have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure whether that's for the applicant or staff, but I'll leave that open. My first question is there a fence on the side where the steps are being constructed? And secondly, are there services such as a gas meter that must be moved for safety prior to construction?
Okay, so it sounds like that's mostly for staff, so,
Yep, through the chair. So your first question, is there a fence? No, there's no fence on that side. And sorry, can you just repeat your second question again?
utilities.
Oh, no, there's no utilities in the way.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Okay. Anybody else from staff or committee that may have any questions? Okay. Seeing none, is there anybody else on the line that is here to either speak for or against the application A6222?
No, Mr.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. So seeing none, if there are any other final discussion from the committee members? Okay, seeing none, then I will look for a motion. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve application A6222, seeing subject to the conditions set forth by staff, seeing that it's minor in nature and meets the remaining tests.
Okay. Can I seek a seconder for that motion? Cecil, thank you. And any other discussions on the motion before we move to voting?
I have none.
Okay, seeing, hearing none, then I'll look for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, so that's 3. So the motion has been carried. So Mr. Chair, again, I'm not sure whether you heard that at the top. This motion, although that has been carried here with the Committee of Adjustments in the town of Ajax, the decision is still subject to a 20-day appeal period. And during that period, people could appeal to the Ontario Line Tribunal. Once those 20 days have lapsed, the decision will then become final and binding. If you do, or if you do need to, or are seeking a building permit or other approvals, they could be filed during the appeal period. However, no building permits will be issued until the appeal period is over. Did you have any other questions, Mr. Chair?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair, and all the staff member and all the committee members. I greatly appreciate for your support, and thank you.
All right, have yourself a good evening. Okay, so that brings us to a close of official business in terms of the application portion. So we'll then move to item number 6 on the agenda, or other business. Does anybody have any other business or new business that they'd like to bring to the committee? Okay, seeing, hearing none, then in that case, I'll look for a motion of adjournment. Okay, Cecil? Seconder? Mark, thank you. And then all those in favor, raise your hands. Okay. Mark, I'm not sure if your video is frozen or if you've got, there we go. Okay, so we got 3. Motion's been carried. So that concludes the meeting for this evening for January 25th. Have a good evening.